Hello, this is Spencer, the Senior Manager of Teaching and Learning at Little Kids Rock, and today we are going to go into some mixing and sort of final steps on the soundtrack project for the song we've written together, Ink is Dry, which I might change to Dry Ink. Not sure. So at this point, we've done a lot of recording. A bunch of people have thrown down their parts. We've got pretty much like final stages on vocals and a lot of drums and stuff. And what I'm going to do is just basically go through and listen to it and think about what's missing, if anything, and also how I might want to adjust the levels of things if certain things are too high or certain things are too soft. And then I'm also going to go into panning, which is where you determine how much of each sound, how much of each channel is coming through which headphone. So if you have a stereo signal, which is going through left and right, you can decide if you want equal amounts left and right, if you want it to be only in the left ear, if you want it to be only in the right ear. If you've ever driven in a car and listened to the radio on a car with like a broken stereo, you can really tell because it's like you hear all of the things from like the left speaker, but the right one's broken, and you're like, where's the guitar part? Or like, why is the vocal so low? That's just it. It's because those things were heavily panned and you're only hearing half of it. If you ever want to try this out, turn on some music, especially bands that play with this a lot. Like, I feel like in the 60s and 70s, people were doing a whole lot of panning. And just take off one headphone and hear what you hear. And then try the other one and see what you hear. It's a lot of fun. Okay, so let's start just by listening. Okay, so one thing I'm already noticing is that somewhere in these synths, there's something that's bothering me. Yeah, they both resolve on a G, and I'm not really digging that. Oops, I accidentally just wrote a note in there. They both just like da, and I need some harmony there. So let's see, this one. Da, da. I think I'm gonna move this down to a G. No, I don't like that one. I think I'm okay with that one staying where it is. Let's try the other one. Let's hear it in the context. You know what I'm also going to do? I feel like this, when it pops back up to that G, it just like cuts and it just kind of comes out of the texture. I'm going to bring it down to an octave lower. So we still have that G, but it's an octave lower, and we'll see how it sounds. I think I like that a little bit more. When you're writing parts like this, it's important to keep in mind what instruments are playing which notes. So like there was a G in this synth, there was a G in this synth, the bass is also playing the G, the guitar might be playing a G. There's just a lot of G, and so it's like it's all just a unison. You don't have that blend of different notes. So I'm gonna change a couple of those, and then I think this should be the same thing. So I'm just gonna loop that, and I'll make sure to copy and paste this stuff when I need to. And let's try something out. Let's put the we've got this one all the way to the right and this one all the way to the left. So we've got the two different synths are like hard in each ear. And then the Rhodes, where's the Rhodes at? That one is panned a little bit to the left. And then the guitar is panned dead center. So I'm going to put the guitar a little bit to the right, so that way the Rhodes, which is sort of like a mid-range harmonic instrument, isn't going to compete with the guitar, which is also sort of a mid-range harmonic instrument. So you get the guitar in one ear and the Rhodes in the other ear.
Grown into this new perspective, grown into skin that feels like mine.
And looks like something just got cut off here. So I'm just going to quickly get rid of this part right here and loop this one over and this one over. Oh, you know what it is? So the reason this disappeared when I clicked separate is because these two notes are actually not starting on right on beat one. They're starting a little bit before. And so when I click to delete them, when I delete the measure before, it's also affecting that. So I'm going to just quantize those to the quarter note, since they can. Quantize to the quarter note. And that way when I delete that stuff, the other thing's not going to delete too. And then I can drag out this loop and drag out this loop.
I'm here with my dear new collective. I've been figuring it out a day at a time. You seem together at 16, so I felt broken in my 8.
All right, now I'm going to loop this next section. Where's my looper? Here it is. I'm feeling pretty good about the verse, but I'm going to loop this next section just so I can sort of listen over and over again as need be. All right. And that's the chorus, and let's turn that on.
You seem together at 16, so I felt broken in my age. I know my parents will miss me, but the sound check's over and it's time to go on stage. The ink is dry now, it's time to turn the page. You seem together at 16.
I'm just going to tighten this up. Sometimes just the visualization of the project needs a little fixing. So there was just kind of that bit dragging out, and so I'm just tightening it up.
You seem together at 16, so I felt broken in my age.
And let's do the same thing where we have one synth going to the left and this other synth, this zither, going all the way to the right. Let's see how that affects things.
You seem together at 16, so I felt broken in my age. I know my parents will miss me, but the sound check's over and it's time to go on stage. The ink is dry now, it's time to turn the page.
All right, and now I'm gonna change a little bit. So this guitar, just to give it a little bit more space, I'm gonna move this guitar over a little bit to the right and see how that sounds. And I'm gonna get both of these synths that I had before and see how they sound over on the left. So we're going to move them about the same amount on the left. So not quite that far. And that way we've got the synths on one side and the guitar on the other.
You seem together at 16, so I felt broken in my age. I know my parents will miss me, but the sound check's over and it's time to go on stage. The ink is dry now, it's time to turn the page. You seem together.
All right, now there's this cool little guitar riff that's got recorded, this like doodle-doo, 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 which I really dig. But I don't really want it dead center. just because it's a little too forward. So I'm going to pull it. A lot of the guitar stuff I've been pulling right. So let's actually, since the guitar was just in the right ear, let's try to see what happens when we go left with it. So that way we're going from the guitar from the right to the left.
Now it's time to turn the page.
Another thing that we'll do is this guitar that we had before, we panned it a little bit to the right, and then this new guitar, we have it to the left. So we have two guitars going on at once, but they're not in the same side, kind of like competing with each other. They both have their space to breathe and be heard.
Turned every dial on the mixer. No satisfaction at the tone. Rewrote the letter every evening. Unsure I ever sent it home.
All right, what's going on here? I got a couple acoustic drums and copy of acoustic drums. So I recorded some acoustic drums, but Scott also recorded some acoustic drums. Let's just see how they're different, how each of us plays it. So Scott's kind of doing like a finger pick pattern, and mine was sort of how I originally had played it. And I'm going to delete this second part because that is definitely not needed. I copied the track to have a mirror of it, but I don't need a copy of all of the track information too. I'll get to what I was doing there later. So let's see, we've got this little interlude.
Turned every dial on the mixer. No satisfaction at the tone. Rewrote the letter every evening. Unsure I ever send it home.
All right, now one thing that's confusing me is these acoustic drums are starting right at the end of the verse, and they're sort of coming in midsection. So let me see what's actually happening there. Oh, just gonna need to solo that one. Yeah, so this is the verse. Where's our chorus? Where's the chorus here? So let me figure out what's going on. I already did that part. That's the bridge. Together at 16. That's like the bum out chorus. Bum out meaning like just get sad, really somber. I'm just gonna get rid of this because Scott's got it pretty much covered. You know, the function that this sort of serves is almost like a shaker, like the percussive sound of the strings against the pick against the strings. Almost works kind of like a shaker. So what I'm actually going to do, let's get rid of this section here. Let's make sure you can see everything that I'm doing. And I'm going to go into the looper, and I'm going to find just a shaker, because I think a shaker would sound really good. So let's go with shaker. See what I can find. Let's see. Now I want something like super straightforward, like pop shaker. Basic. There we go. If it get a little bit brighter, it would be nice. I think that's the sort of shaker I'm looking for. I'm thinking like egg shaker. What was that? I think that's the one I like a lot. So I'm going to drag that loop in. And I'm probably going to reverb it out a lot. So it's going to have like a big, like, ooh, ethereal shaker sound. So let's actually get rid of this for right now. Those guitar parts. And where are we looking? Let's get this shaker to come in right at the chorus.
Turned every dial on the mixer. No satisfaction at the tone. Rewrote the letter every evening. Unsure I ever send it home. You seem to gather at 16.
So I definitely don't want that shaker too loud in the mix. I want it to be pretty quiet. So I'm going to bring it down a little bit. And I'm going to turn up the reverb on it a good amount. I want a good amount of reverb on that shaker. Let's hear how that sounds.
You seem together.
Maybe even a little bit more. Ooh, no. It sort of reaches this breaking point where it starts to just get like noisy. And I don't want quite that much noise. But I definitely do want a little bit of... And there's a little bit of EQ here, so what I'm doing is actually taking all the bass out. Since I don't want any bass, I want it to just have like a bright, just that like bright shaker quality. I don't need the bass in there at all.
16. So I felt broken in my age. I know my parents will miss me, but the sound check's over and it's time to go on stage. The ink is dry now, it's time to turn the page.
And here's how where we doubled the chorus to give Scott a full guitar solo.
Right now, it's time to turn the page.
All right, we're overloading a little bit because we got a ton of tracks going on. And just as a means of making sure that things don't clip, I'm going to actually fade out this track. So all my audio tracks, a lot of them I'll do a little quick fade in and fade out just to keep them from having like a real sharp clip. So even though Scott started this right away, I'm going to do a fade in on the guitar solo, but it's going to be a very brief fade in just to make sure there's no clipping at the beginning. So basically as quick as I can make it. Let's give the program a moment to process everything. We're asking a lot of it. I'm going to hit save right now, too, since we've already done some stuff. All right, so right now, the vocal is really low in the mix. And so I'm going up to the vocal tracks, and there's 3 vocal tracks, so like probably totally good to have those there. Like there's enough. I might bring everything else down a little bit, just because it seems to be a little bit much right now. That guitar is what's really cutting through, and so there's just like a little too much guitar. It's a great line, but it's just too much right now. So bridge distorted guitar, I think that's the one that's a little too much. It might be this one. Let's see. Yeah, that's the one. It's basically playing the bass part doubled, and so the bass is already doing it too, so we don't need it quite that loud. Again, I'm going to do little fade ins on both of these. And again, it's not actually really so the track fades in. It's just to prevent any sort of clipping that might happen. And the clipping basically just happens when you have a sound that starts suddenly. Like if you recorded a bit and then a sound starts suddenly and it's like, and so the fade in kind of cuts any of those unnecessary percussive sounds. So it basically, like you create a percussive sound accidentally by editing the audio, and it removes those percussive sounds. So let's just do a fade out. Notice how all my fade ins and outs are after the audio is already done. Like, so it's not actually going to affect the sound of the recording itself. Like it's not going to be like slowly bringing that guitar fade in. It's just going to prevent that clipping. And let's do, what's happening here? Oop, a little too far. So one thing that happens when you get this many tracks on a project is things just start to slow down a little bit just because you're working with so much. And I'm going to bring in, I'm actually going to fade, I'm going to do an actual fade in on this acoustic guitar. It's making it very hard to listen to it all. This is one thing, advantage of like, before I'm done with this and when I say like, cool, I think I'm pretty good, I'm going to do a mix down of this and download the track so that way it's not going to deal with any processing issues as I'm listening and reviewing.
You seem together at 16. So I felt broken in my age.
Okay, so I was listening to this and I was really feeling like I thought it would be really cool to put some like kind of like oceany wave sounds during the bridge since it's so like ethereal or like wind. So I'm opening up the loops and let's go with like waves. And what's cool is there are, let's see, waves. Yeah, so a lot of these sounds are, there's sounds that you can pick that aren't instrumental sounds. They're just sort of like atmospheric sounds. So let's just hear what some of these sound like. I like the like whooshing of the water, but I don't like the dripping of the like sea cave. So I don't want a sea cave. What about like ocean? So what this is doing is this is connecting to a website called freesound.org, and it's finding similar sounds based on the keys, the search terms we're using. I don't want that. Incoming tide, maybe that. Oh, ocean beach at night with small waves. I think that. Seashore. Let's see what this one. Ocean, lake. I think I just want like sort of like windy ocean sounds.
Fjara Nacht.
Oh, that one's got a narrator in the back. I definitely don't want that. I think this is the one I'm thinking of, like sort of that hum. I might dig a little bit deeper and see what else I can find. So I'm going to pull this in. And I really want this one to be pretty. I'm going to give it a little bit of reverb. It's definitely going to need that. And I'm probably going to have it pretty low in the mix, because it's more of just like an atmosphere. And then I'm going to definitely give it a fade in and a fade out. And this one, I want more of that effect of like a fade in, fade out effect. So let's see where this.
You seem to get.
So right here, when it gets to the like sad chorus where things are really like a lot lower.
Day by day, know thyself better. You seem together at 16. So I felt broken in my age. I know my parents will miss me. I know my parents will miss me. You seem together at 16.
And I'm just gonna let it fade out. So after it plays, I'm gonna let it fade out.
Day by day, know thyself better. You seem together at 16. So I felt broken in my age. I know my parents will miss me. I know my parents will miss me. You seem together at 16. So I felt broken in my age. I know my parents will miss me. But the sound check's over and it's time to go on stage. The ink is dry now, it's time to turn the page. The sound check's over and it's time to go on stage. The ink is dry now, it's time to turn the page.
All right, and then I talked about before how it was just one guitar and one voice to give it a really like mellow ending. So a couple things that I'm gonna keep going through and checking out is making sure that I'm doing the fade ins and the fade outs at the beginning of tracks so they don't clip. And then I'm gonna just listen to this several times. I'm gonna download it and listen to it so it's not processing as I'm listening to it, and just hear how that sounds and come up with any ideas. And then I'm going to send it over to the rest of the band and ask them to make adjustments that they see fit. A couple other things I might do, like make sure that parts that I adjusted at one point are going over to the rest of the song. Like I know that I adjusted that keyboard part in the beginning, making sure that I go back and have that one adjusted as well later on in the track. All right. Thank you so much for joining us today with the daily lessons from Little Kids Rock. I will see you all later. Please take care of yourselves and each other.